Hello and welcome to another episode of the World Class Real Estate Podcast. My name is Mark Worrell. I'm joined by Mr. Ian Macbeth. How are you, pal?
Face to face. Nice to see your smiley face, not on a Zoom recording.
I said to Austin as we came in this morning, this is only the second time I think that we've recorded this podcast face to face in basically 300 episodes. So yeah, it's a little bit daunting, I suppose, in some parts.
Centre of the UK in Coventry,
in Cov. Got Big Frank Lampard on.
Yeah. We got Frank coming on today's episode. No, we haven't, but we have got a great guest, and one of the reasons why we wanted to kind of get a face-to-face one in.
Yeah, absolutely.
To talk about everything, to talk about the pairing, and talk about the purpose. And this is why I think Mark's a great guest on this particular one, is because there was so much success from the AI episode that we had go out, where people were so engaged, interested, and very aware in it. And if you haven't listened to that one and you're checking in on this one, go back and check it out. But also talking about kind of Mark's passion. I've known Mark for about 5 years, talking about his passion about how to make estate agency better, and as direct as he puts it, save estate agency. And we all know that there are weaknesses within the industry. I highlight them in my way. We talk about it on various episodes that we do as well. But Mark is like genuinely passionate about trying to make the estate agency world better. So we're going to uncover a lot of that on this particular episode, which I'm excited for.
Yeah, and that's the interesting thing. This isn't just something to make a book. This is a passion, and you'll hear that throughout the episode. This is a man who's passionate about trying to make estate agency, and specifically estate agency, better, and a few ways about how we can do that. So let's dive in.
Let's get him on. Mark, welcome to the show. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Face-to-face episode. Looking forward to this.
Yep.
Yeah, the first of not very many face-to-face episodes. So, really looking forward to it. Mark, thanks very much for joining us. We'll start, as we start every episode, with the question, what does world-class real estate look like to you in 2025?
It's a big question to start with. For me, real estate or any business, it's all about customer journeys. It's all about making sure that people are having an outstanding experience. I think there's far too many businesses out there that just exist. And when people look around and go, everything's been done, it's like, yeah, everything's been done, but everything's been done a bit shit. So, for me, it's always about mapping out your customer experience and making sure that people get an incredible experience, regardless of whether you sell their property or don't sell their property. People should walk away going, those guys are awesome.
And what does a world-class customer journey look like for an estate agent then? And how is that different now from maybe even 2 years ago, but certainly 5-10 years ago?
I don't think there's any one particular right customer journey. I think quite often, certainly in the UK, in estate agency, people often try and say this is how it should be done. I'm not a big believer in that, to be honest. I think it depends on your niche and it depends on what it is that you're offering people. But regardless of that, building a customer journey should be a case whereby you look at every phase that you're going to go through with a customer. So in basic terms, let's just say from when they first discover you to when they have a valuation to when they put their house on the market to when they're available as a property to when they're SSTC and then through to completion and so on and so forth. You look at each of those phases and put yourself in the shoes of the customer and think, what would they give us out of 10 at this point? Even if it is literally just the day after they've signed the contract, the week after they've signed the contract. What happens? Not a lot. So how are they probably feeling? Probably a bit shafted. Like you was all nice, you was all on them every day, every hour, and now they ain't heard from you for a week. So what could we do to turn it into a 10 out of 10 at that point? Is it literally just formalise a phone call that happens, formalise a meeting, formalise an email, something?
Yeah.
And just look through every phase and bring it all up to what you would consider to be 10 out of 10. And if you can do that, as I say, regardless of whether it's estate agency or cars, most of us will have had a bad experience with a car dealer, for instance, with probably what someone would consider to be a world-class car dealership that has fallen down on their customer service. So I think it's just a question of looking through each phase, regardless of whether you're technology-focused or not technology-focused, or whether you're dealing high-end homes or low-end homes or whatever it might be, rental, sales. and just thinking about each stage of that customer experience and thinking like, how would we get this to be 10 out of 10?
I wanted to, on the customer side of things as well, and we'll talk about data in a little bit later on, but when you were on stage recently at one of your events, you mentioned about CRM, and I think you might have even asked everyone to kind of put their hand up if they knew what CRM actually meant, but it kind of made me chuckle because as estate agents, we're looking at our CRM probably in a very different way to a lot of businesses on a high level. But let's just sort of talk about CRMs and talk about kind of Iceberg Digital and your thought process to what's going on. And I guess through the eyes of an estate agent, almost give a little bit of education of what it should actually do for them as well, because it overlaps with what we're talking about here.
Yeah, okay. So in estate agency, CRM means the software that you use to manage your transactions.
Get it on the portals.
Yeah, basically that's what it means, right?
Yeah.
Like, you know, if you're going to start an estate agency, you need what you consider to be a CRM in order to keep track of your viewings, get your properties on the portals, run them through from available to completion. A CRM is a customer relationship management system. So if we go back to what I was just talking about before in terms of gaining customers and keeping customers happy, what estate agents call CRM isn't a CRM. Mm. It's like a till at the front of the shop. It's for transactions.
It's a good analogy.
Right? It's solely for transactions. If you're doing marketing, as most estate agents that probably listen to this podcast are anyway, doing some form of marketing, whether it's digital or print or whatever it might be, to generate leads, where does a lead go? Like they're not doing a transaction. Mm-hmm. So where does it go? It can't go into what you consider to be your CRM because they haven't put their house on the market and they're not out viewing. So they go in the archive, which is basically the bin because nothing's happening with the archive. So if we go back to your question, what is CRM? CRM is customer relationship management, from how you get leads, how you nurture those leads and turn those leads into customers, and then how you look after those customers and how you track how happy they are and how you take it all the way through to completion and then back round to being a customer again. For me, that's what CRM is. Because
my sort of 21 years in agency, where I was running 10 branches at an MD level employed, I looked at the CRM being clean. And to me, when I saw it as clean, how I was trained was the negotiators had like 50 buyers max, and they were archiving them when they weren't viewing. And then from a valuation follow-up, the valuers had like 100 hot sort of val follow-ups max. And then I didn't want them to have too many things to look after because it became unmanageable because we were manually calling them, run a brief report. And that was like a clean CRM in my head. It was like small hot people, like maybe even 4% of the total database was like the bit that we worked. And the rest of it was like, just looked a bit wafty and shit. You didn't really want it.
Get rid.
Yeah. But now my mind is totally different.
I think it comes... there's a sort of stalling point in estate agency technology. So if you go all the way back to, just go back to like when I was in agency, there's no computers except for the admin person has maybe got like Windows 3.1, right?
Yeah.
But no one knows how to use it. We've got our box of applicants. We've got our 1 to 31 system in the filing cabinet to chase valuations. What came after that was estate agency software. We call it CRM, but it wasn't. It was estate agency software.
Yeah.
Computers at that point were for you to take your paper and put it in a computer. They didn't do any automations. They didn't have algorithms. They were just better. You didn't have all this paper. Mm. So you still worked the same system, exactly what you're talking about, because I still only want a certain amount of buyers. Even though I can have millions in this computer, it's going to get confusing for everybody. Because remember, we're talking about computers that can't even at this point really do proper searches, which it just holds the data, and that's kind of where estate agency software stayed, and the rules stayed there. It's going to organise this data for us in a better way than having bits of paper everywhere. but we don't want too much. If we get too much, put it in the archive.
Yeah.
And that's the right rules for that kind of software. The rest of the world moved on to big data systems. And big data systems would allow you to, it would start piecing bits of the puzzle together for you. It would use an algorithm to figure stuff out. So the more stuff that you put in, the more useful stuff it will start putting out the other end. But that piece sort of missed out estate agency. And people stuck with estate agency software, and so therefore still run by the rules, the same rules that I had in the 1990s when it was on paper.
Yeah.
Why do you think we as an industry, and are we alone as an industry, that we didn't make that jump, or are maybe only now just starting to realise it?
I think it's probably a case of most people thinking if it's not broke, don't fix it. The bar is quite low in a estate agency in terms of, don't get me wrong, there's some phenomenal estate agents out there. I'm not saying there isn't. What I'm saying is that the bar's quite low in terms of if you've got nothing, like when I fell into estate agency, my options were work in kebab shop, work in estate agency, maybe, I don't know, at the time working a travel agent or something, or some sales job.
Yeah.
So the bar's still quite low. If you're that type of person like I was, you can make a decent living. You could probably do it with pen and paper in a estate agency if you really needed to. I mean, like, you'd have to find a way of getting stuff on portals, but your everyday work, you could probably still carry out on pen and paper and get away with it.
I think also estate agents hate change. Like the personality of
everybody hates change. Everybody hates change. There's a lot of industries like that. But because the bar's low, and because we're talking about still, like, other than mass corporates, we're still talking about small businesses.
Yeah. Very fractured.
It's just sort of like, it's just gone like Ian said, like, someone taught me how to do it. I taught someone else how to do it. They taught you how to do it. And that was the software, and they're the rules. Yeah. It's a bit like when agents still write really detailed descriptions about the property. It comes from when I was in a estate agency, you could have one black and white photo. So you needed to be very descriptive in your descriptions, and it's just carried on. There's no need for it because there's a fucking video, right? So you don't need to say cove into ceiling, right? There's a video.
Yeah.
You don't need to say, like, about the sink and stuff. But it's just carried on.
Yeah. And everyone expects it as a result.
Yeah, they don't know why they tell each other to do it, but they just do it.
And with your journey, obviously you've got that agency background, and then the technology aspect of things was the route that you wanted to go down with your business. But it is a tough industry to work in, estate agents. It's not an easy one to kind of do. But when you're kind of connected to it, for some reason, you're just connected to it. But I kind of sort of liken the life cycle of the Iceberg Digital journey to when it started is a similar situation to what Star Wars found themselves in, where they were like, we're going to build these episodes now because the first episodes, we don't have the worldwide graphics and technology yet to make it as good as the vision is. And it almost feels with me knowing you over the last sort of 5 or 6 years, that your head was like, I'm going to make this, but physically and technically, I can't make it yet. So I'm going to make this part first, but I know this part's coming. You've always said this is where we're going to get. And it feels like kind of now you've really got to that phase because the tech has sort of almost caught up with how your brain and your vision was looking. So if we just go back to the sort of start of it, what was your kind of vision, thought process around what you wanted to kind of build and create?
So as a bit of a long-winded answer, but I'll get to what you're asking. So my journey, I started my first business in 2001. It was an IT recruitment company, and it was literally just a case of like calling people, asking if they had vacancies. And then after that, I had a publishing company. I had a couple of technology companies. I started Iceberg in 2009, and it was a company that made digital magazines for estate agents. We built a system where they could just press a button and it pulled together this magazine. Awesome technology at the time. Some agents still do it now, bafflingly, but like, you know, it was pretty good at the time. But again, the business was based around phone estate agents. Asked them if they would like to make a magazine that didn't cost very much and was easy to do. If yes, have a meeting and show them the software. If no, move on to the next one. And the business was pretty successful. And then probably 4 or 5 years into that, so we're talking now 2013, I came across this, it's probably at 2014, I would say. I came across this white paper by Google called The Zero Moment of Truth, whereby they spoke about how people make buying decisions. And it was all around this 7-11-4 process, which you guys probably know, but if you have to spend 7 hours with somebody, have 11 touch points and meet them in 4 different locations, and then suddenly they know, like, and trust you and want to buy this product. And it just went into all of this stuff. And I thought to myself, like, this is pretty mad, because we're phoning so many agents. I had a team of salespeople, and if they say, no, I'm not interested, we move on. And even if we do a demo and they don't buy it, we move on. And it was like, it seems crazy now, but there just wasn't really such thing. People weren't talking about nurturing systems.
You were like archiving agents in the same way we're archiving buyers.
We're just moving on. Yeah. And I, as the sort of this boss of the company, was going to my sales guys, I don't care, just do a sale. I don't care that you're still chasing that guy from 3 months ago. Yeah. Chase someone else.
Yeah.
And so I started trying to find a system that would be better at doing this. It started to clock what Apple and Google and Facebook and Amazon, all these people were doing suddenly with big data. It all started to just suddenly click into place for me, and it was like, shit, you've got this service. Like, Google's got this service whereby it's brilliant. I just get my search results, but their product gets better with time. Like, every other product is getting worse with time, and Google's getting better, and it's learning. And then as soon as something new come out, suddenly I'd start seeing it a different way. Like, what are they doing here data wise? And it'd all click, and it'd be like, shit. So I tried to use Salesforce to start with, but it's just fucking awful. I mean, like, I know it's got the tag of #1 CRM in the world, but like, give it a go. Like, knock yourself out. It's like awful. It's okay if you're, if you're a massive corporation, you might be able to do some stuff with it. Like, if you've got a team of 500 developers that are going to do something on top of it. But other than that, like, it's pretty awful. So we tried it, and they didn't really understand what I was trying to get to. But then they called me up and said, we've bought this company called Pardot, and Pardot does some of the stuff that you've been talking about. So then I used Pardot and Salesforce, and I could start to see a few things that I wanted to, but it was all really expensive. And eventually I thought, I'm just going to build my own little system. It was only for me internally, and we built a system with one developer, and suddenly the company switched almost overnight from one whereby our phones never rang. We just made outgoing calls. Yep. And suddenly the company switched to, like, every day we'd get an incoming demo. Every single day. It was like, what the fuck? So we're running ads on Facebook. We're running ads on Google for pence at the time.
Good old days.
Yeah. And we're producing content. We're doing this 7-11-4 thing. My system is now tracking who's coming live on my website, who's looking at this content, who's doing it. It was like, this is mental. Eventually we stopped making cold calls. We got rid of our sales team. And from 2015 until recently, really, we've had no outbound sales team at all, ever, at any point. And the company just went off into the millions. So I looked across at a estate agency when halfway through this, around 2015-16 time, and thought to myself, you lot are fucked. Like, literally, someone's going to kill this industry.
Yeah.
And I'm surprised they haven't. And Purple Bricks had launched just around that time, and I thought, that's the one. They know what they're doing. They don't care. They don't care about profit. Like, you're missing the point. When everyone was going like 999, you can't even make a living. It was like, they don't care about a living.
No.
They're building a big data system. And amazingly, they weren't. Like, it turns out they weren't building a big data system, and they did care about profit, and like it was a failure, and still continues to be. Maybe they'll turn it around, but I looked across and thought, like, you're so screwed, because like you're still working this way we just spoke about at the beginning. You're not getting better with time. The system's not doing anything. You're not getting out of sight of a new person that could open in your area, do a special fee, and steal business off of you. That shouldn't be possible. So it was like, right, I could take my system and plug it into what estate agents call their CRMs. And then happy days, you get to keep your current software, and it will start doing this other thing in the background, keeping track of everybody, nurturing people, 7-Eleven forum people, and you can continue using the software. So I tried to integrate with the current softwares, but it just couldn't be done because they're built for a different reason. Like I say, they're built to do a transaction as quickly and easily as possible. So, you think if you're a negotiator in an office, someone phones up, they want to book a view, and you just want to book it in the diary.
Yeah.
Like, look through the data, they don't even take the first name. Like, it is literally like Mr. M. Jones. That's it.
I mean, it was a pain in the arse to kind of almost write it in the viewing book, write it in the diary, enter it onto the CR. Like, there's quite a lot of doubling up, wasn't
because there's no why would they care? They just want to make a view and move on to the next one.
Yeah.
Right. So we tried to integrate with the CRMs, but it just wasn't possible. And that's why I have a deep understanding of knowing why it's not possible for any of the existing CRMs to, move into the future as it's going to happen. But we tried that. It didn't work. So then was the realization of, like, if we were going to do this, we're going to have to rebuild everything. That's crazy. Like, we're competing with companies like, Zoopla, who have got, they're backed by the same people as, like, Manchester City. Like, it's just like 6 people in jeans not going to be able to pull this off. So we thought about it, and we thought, fuck it, we'll do it anyway, as you do. But we knew that we couldn't start, like you say, with the end product. The end product was, you should have a website, for instance, whereby when I hit the website, I see something different to when you hit the website, and something different to when you hit the website. And
like a Netflix profile.
Yeah.
We've all
Netflix,
got a different
Netflix, even on the same film, Netflix are showing different thumbnails to you than they're showing to me, because they have a big data system underneath. But the big data system, when you just say that, is boring. I mean, that's so boring. It doesn't do anything. And all that's going to happen is going to become slightly more difficult for you to book viewings. Because now I do want you to put in their email address and their telephone number and some preferences and all that sort of stuff. And then you have to start working it back to, like, but why do I have to put in the preferences? Like, and you start realising estate agency software doesn't even do matching. Like, it doesn't even do matching. Like, I know you can click and press and send a match, but it's like so bad that no one does. It's like, this should be the basics. And this is where it all starts falling down. You haven't even got that bit of data. So then you've got to build a system for that. So it was like, this is too big. So to start with, I'm going to need to build a system that just helps people out on their market appraisals. Because the majority of agents, that's all they really care about. It's like getting the house on the market, right? So let's give them something that helps with that. So we made a small tool that helped people with market appraisals. Lots of people used it. And because of that, we could then make an entry point into, like, well, you know what? You've done the market appraisal now. You could send it to the portals. But I do that in my CRM. And it was a slow process. As you say, like, we always knew that I wouldn't say, that I knew that we were going to get to this stage with AI as it is today, or where it goes in the next, 10 years. I've got ideas around it. But I could see from back in 2013, I could just follow what, Google, Netflix, Amazon and Apple were doing. It's like, it's not hard to see.
Yeah.
They're building big data systems because they know that once, like, they're an extreme example. I know we're talking about a small estate agency, but once you've got the data, you cannot be caught. Like, you can't build a better search engine than Google at the moment under the current rules because they've been doing it for 25 years. It gets better with every search. When you get that little thing that how many bikes are on the in the picture, how many, like, click the thing to say how many cars are in this picture.
Yeah.
You know what Google's actually doing there? Google was teaching their AI You were teaching Google's AI. Millions and millions of people around the world were teaching Google's AI what a bike is, what a car is, but no one else could do it. Yeah, no one else can do it.
Yeah.
And estate agencies are the same. Like, you've got a big data system. I can't just open up in one of your areas. It's fucking impossible for me. And the more data you get, the bigger it expands, the more features that come, the more it becomes like, this is just impossible to take on. Someone has to buy you if they want to move into that area. So that was it. That was it for me. I guess that in answer to your question, what made me go down that road was looking across at a estate agency, thinking like this is all over. But you could save yourself because of the way a estate agency works. You don't need to be Google. You only need to have the system for your area. That's all you need.
Yeah.
You could go national if you want, but you only need to own your area. And then it doesn't even matter if a national company came, you'd still be better in your area. Just like, I don't know, I know they wouldn't, but if all the agents decided they were going to make their own little portal in Dartford, it would be better than Rightmove in Dartford, wouldn't it? And they wouldn't care about what's going on in the rest of the country.
Yeah.
And so that was the principle, and that was what we thought, like, we need to build this.
And you've got multiple agents now, some really great agents, as part of your community that you've built. But what would you say are the kind of things that you now see with some of those best agents that have had some fantastic growth since lockdown, shall we say? We always use that as a metric, the last sort of 5 years, 4 years. What would you say that those agents are now doing, not just necessarily in the database, the CRM, the nurture, but kind of just in general from how they think, those business owners?
To me, it always seemed obvious that you're going to have to find a way of arguing against Rightmove. And for many years, everyone that I spoke to about it was like, oh, whatever.
Yeah.
As if I'm going to be able to move away from Rightmove, the other agents are just going to kill me. I'm not even going to bother. It goes back to that whole, the bar's quite low. Look, this is how it works. You get a house, you put it on Rightmove. I know there's some other sauce that you can sprinkle on the top, but most of the other sauce is about getting more listings. But for me, when I was looking at it, just objectively, looking at these massive data companies, looking at where a estate agency was going, I was thinking to myself, like, I know it's hard. I know you can just put it on Rightmove. I'm not arguing against the fact that you can. I'm arguing against the fact that that's going to lead to oblivion, because anyone can do it. And so why would I use your company? Oh, because we give a good service. I know, it's not
same stuff, isn't it?
Enough.
Yeah.
It's not enough for me to want to use your company. You've got to be able to come round and show me, like, I need you. Like, I absolutely need your agency. Not I like you, I need you. And that is, there's layers to it. And one of the layers is, like, you've got to have your own intellectual property, some method you use to sell houses. And it's your method, and so I need access to your company in order to get access to that method. That will work quite well. On top of that, at the very top of the pile is your data. If you can show me that I also need access to your data, your IP and your data, and without your IP and your data I'm not going to get a good result, then you've won. Mm-hmm. So I was saying to people, you've got to step away from Rightmove. But there wasn't really a way of doing it, because I hadn't actually at the time thought about the fact that you can't do matching in an estate agency software. I had assumed that it had moved on over the years, wrongly, until eventually we looked at it and was like, whoa, this is crazy. The public, as a very minimum, would expect an estate agent to be able to keep me updated with, like, the stuff I want.
Yeah.
As a very minimum, the public would expect that, wouldn't they?
Just spray everything out.
Yeah.
That's what happens.
Exactly. So that's what's happened here with Rightmove. Like, people set up their alerts with Rightmove, not with the estate agent, because the estate agent can't do it. They've still got a software that can't do it. To this day.
Yeah.
There is no other software that can do it properly. It's mad.
It's just on the agent to know the buyers mentally. And if you change agents or you lose an estate agent from your office, that knowledge is totally dispersed.
Right.
It's gone.
And it goes back to that thing that you were saying about, like, we don't have too many because you won't be able to keep them informed of what we've got.
Yeah.
So we were like, okay, so we could build a system then that does alerts better than Rightmove. And if we can do that, then would you launch to your database before Rightmove? Because you haven't got to do anything.
Yeah.
I'm not saying to you go in and run a match and all of that sort of thing. And people had started trying it on social media, but they couldn't actually do it to their database. And again, the difference being, anyone can do social media. I know you can build a big following and all that sort of stuff, but it's not your data. It's still just Facebook's data.
In a world where estate agents are bombarded by prop tech hype and AI buzzwords, one company is setting the standard: Iceberg Digital, with AI-powered prospecting that uncovers new listings before your competitors, marketing that wins you instructions by putting your brand in front and centre, and a fully integrated CRM that transforms how your team works every day. This is not another tool, it's world-class real estate technology. Stop just doing the basics better and start using software that actually moves the dial in your business. Discover icebergdigital.co.uk today.
What does world-class real estate look like to you in 2025?
Obviously, what's best for clients, what's best for seller and buyer.
But it's got to be just very customer focused.
The Michelin star agent.
It's the feeling of how you make your customers feel.
Charge a premium fee for premium results.
So people had started doing it on social media, but the difference is that's not your data. You know, I know you can increase your following and have a bigger following than someone else, but it's still someone else's data. So we built heads-up property alerts whereby the person can register themselves online down to the exact location. They can say, I just want to be in this street or wherever it might be, this radius. This is where I want. Ideally, they'll choose a centre point of their search. So let's say Coventry Station and half a mile around or 2 miles around, or a school or whatever it might be. And they can just do it themselves into the estate agent's database. And immediately, as soon as they've clicked save, it will show them their matches from anything from 100% down to 30%. We've done the percentage thing because, you know, estate agents are like, well, I like to go a bit outside of what people have said. Fine. So we can build that for you, just like Netflix used to do a percentage.
Yep.
So they immediately get their matches. And then any time you put a property on the market that's within 100 to 30%, they'll get an email saying there's a new update to your matches. Go here to check it out. It doesn't send them the property. It says there's a new update to your matches. Go here to check it out. So they go there. So now we can track them and we can go, this guy's on your website. We sent him 27 High Street, but he wasn't that interested because it's only a 45% match. But he went back again and looked at the one that he's looked at 4 times already. So you might want to call him because he hasn't had a viewing on it yet. So they come up inside the system under potential viewings. And that's happening 24/7, 365. People are registering and they're getting matches. Properties are going on and they're going out to the database. And the agent doesn't have to touch it. So because of that, I could then convince some agents that they should launch to their database first. And it was hard. Like people would only do 24 hours. They would only do 24 hours before Rightmove because, again, they would say, I'm going to get killed on the valuation. I was like, you're not going to get killed on the valuation. You've got to see it as a positive. Somehow you've got to spin it. I don't know how. I mean, I can work it out for you, but just figure it out. 24 hours don't make no difference. You know, I'm a buyer. I don't give a shit. Like, you're not going to sell it in 24 hours. If I see it tomorrow and make an offer, you'll take it. So eventually, we slowly managed to stretch it out. And so now I've got agents that are doing 14, some even 30 days before the portals. They go to their database, 14 to 30, which allows them to actually run ads and say to people, look, you need to register for a heads-up property alerts. If you're serious about finding a property, you need to register here and you'll learn about it before it hits the portals.
The psychology of that, like, exclusivity in this day and age, I think, because everything's so vanilla, there's so much of everything, you know, everything's on demand, but the ability to kind of feel as a buyer in this case or a potential purchaser of said product, but to feel like you're getting it before other people, that's the win that we see. Yeah. You know, that's the real game changer. Have you used that as well a little bit?
You can actually turn around the power of Rightmove with exactly that, in that it's not necessarily because you'll have more than one person on your heads up property. It's not necessarily you can see it before anyone else, but you can see it before Rightmove. And that is a very powerful conversation to have with people. I think those in the olden days where it took people however long to get the property particulars together, that went on more. That then died off because everyone was just get it on Rightmove. And you're right, people expect it, and I understand agents don't want to take criticism, but you can also flip it the other way on the buyer's side, the exclusivity. And we've had it where people will be the only person interested, and they'll pay asking and over asking to keep it off Rightmove.
Yeah. Well, but what we were doing was we were just finding a way of getting the data. So agents would, in an ideal world, an estate agent would like to be able to go onto social media and go, look, if you're thinking about buying a house, but you haven't sold your one yet, come and talk to me. Right? Most estate agents would like to be able to do that and for people to then make an inquiry to you.
Yeah.
But you can't, because it's a busy world and that content will just get washed away as being useless. But I've just done it because my registration will qualify people, and 20% of them have got a house to sell that's not yet on the market. Now, because Lifecycle is a big data system, not an estate agency software on its own, not a transactional software, it can now filter through all that data and go, here's the 20% of people that are actively looking, they've got a house to sell not yet on the market, or are on the market with another agent. And this one's just been on your website reading about your fees. So there's that side of it, right? Now estate agents are getting leads without being salesy. They're offering something, people are filling it out, and they're getting something else out of it. This, like the Google thing, like they gave you a search, they gave you this, they gave you that, but they were getting something else. Now that's happening in an estate agency. Now, because you've got these buyers, when I go and see a vendor, you're asking, what have I seen that's made agents really increase their fees and market share? They sit with the agent, because the system will work on any device. So they've got their iPad. They go, right, okay, so they have the usual conversation that the price of the house is a bit subjective. Let's, look at some comparables. Let's do this. Let's do all that. And they settle around a price and they go, look, this is my IP. This is the method that we use. Rightmove has got 8 million visitors a month, but you don't need 8 million visitors. You need 2 people to want this house to push the price up. So your market's a lot smaller than Rightmove. Let's not worry about Rightmove for a minute. What you need is 2 people specifically interested in this house at this time. So let's look in my database. And now, because of the way that Heads Up worked, where it was so exact, I can go, this is your house right here. And this is the price we're talking about. This is your number of bedrooms, blah, 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 blah. Bang. I've got 16 people that are registered to looking for a house in this exact location, in this price range, with this number of bedrooms that are active right now. And you can see that guy was active on my website 3 minutes ago. This one 4 minutes ago. And these 5 have got nothing to sell, and these 5 have already got their mortgage sorted. So shall I speak to these people first before we tell the entire world that your house is on the market at the wrong price? It just works. Why wouldn't it work?
Yeah.
Now I've got the IP and I've got the data. So the next agent that comes and says, we do professional photography, we've got great customer service, we can get you on Rightmove in the next 10 minutes. Yeah, anyone can do that. So then it's going to be like, how much do you charge?
Yeah.
My guy, they're going, how much do you charge? He's going, well, I charge this much, but only if I'm right in what I'm saying. And the agents are able to statistically show this is working. You're going to get more money. If I'm wrong, obviously you're going to pay nothing, and no one's going to know because I haven't even put it on Rightmove.
We had it with Dan. Do you remember Dan that came on, and he was kind of talking about his process, very similar.
Literally that one.
Yeah, he actually he still uses a laptop rather than an iPad, but he gets his laptop and says, look, this is the house that we had last week. These are the viewings that we booked on it. This is the offers that we had for it. This is the open house that came from it. This is the process that we took, where it was beat the portals exclusive prior, then social media just to test the price, make sure we're right. Then we launched it. Then we booked the open house, which was like 70% full before we'd even got to the portals. And then we sold it 5% over asking price.
So those agents, I'm seeing those agents that are doing that are increasing market share and fees unanimously. And weirdly, at the same time, there's another group of agents that I talk to that are losing market share and are struggling with fees. And it seems like there is a real gap appearing. Go back all those years to when we thought about maybe we could make a big data system and maybe it could work where it gets better over time. It just feels like there's two groups. There's a group of estate agents that are thinking, this is great, we're raking it in. It's never been so good. People that told me it was impossible to charge more than they already charge or charging double. And people that are going, how's anyone making a living in this industry anymore? You know?
Yeah.
But this is not a quick fix. You can't just set up your heads-up property alerts today and then start putting your fees up tomorrow. Well, you could if you were implementing other things as well. But this is an education process in your town, isn't it? That heads-up property alerts bit that you mentioned there, that is going to take some time and effort from the agents to do.
Yes and no. I mean, like, it happens on the first valuation, to be honest. I know, obviously, like, where you wouldn't have any matches. That kind of takes care of itself quite quickly because life, again, remember, life cycles are all encompassing, connected. So if you've got anything on the market, immediately, as soon as anybody inquires from the portals, it's asking them to register. Your numbers are going to go up pretty quick anyway. I think the idea that you'd run ads on social media and ask people to register is probably a bit overrated. People see it, but I don't think that drives millions of registrations. What drives registrations is properties that are being advertised, where people are automatically being asked to register and all of that sort of stuff. So I think it happens pretty quick. I think where it doesn't happen pretty quick is when the person just can't bring themselves to...
You're not all in. You've got to be all in.
Yeah. They're sort of... They've taken the system, but they're still going like, yeah, no, we're going right within 24 minutes.
I think also with estate agents, we mentioned, you know, the noise out there in general, not just agency, but the noise out there is so dominant. Everyone's trying to fight for attention. All businesses are trying to grab you for attention. Can't remember I went on a website yesterday, something that the missus was talking about. She showed me. So I went on the website, I looked at it, and now I'm getting hit with it on the socials, you know, kind of the attention grab is so quick. But where estate agents, I think, and I teach this to the partners when they join at Avocado, is if you get your identity right, and it doesn't matter if everyone does it, because everyone is so shit at saying they do it well, that all you've got to do is say you do it. And if you've got a really good story around how you do it, then you're known as the ones that do it.
That's the IP, right? That's the IP bit.
I mean, people in our area think we invented pink.
Yeah.
We didn't invent pink. There was 3 other agents that were pink before us, but they think they copied us because we were so dominant in our marketing about being pink. And it's that, if you can get that right, and Lifecycle in this case, you know, in this analogy, a fantastic tool for it. But as an agent, if you can get your identity right, and that's one of your identity pieces, one of your tools, you can win quite easily then if you're known for it.
I think it's a time preference as well, like you say, because there's a difference between getting a listing at any fee and getting it on the market and getting it sold and getting some money in my bank account. There's a difference between that business and somebody who's trying to build an unstoppable machine. Mm-hmm. You know, so if you're the former of that, you don't need any of this. Like we said, you can do it with a pen and paper. You can be a really nice person, go around, win a listing based on rapport, match a fee, maybe undercut it a bit, and you could win it, and you could sell it, and you could make some money, and that's a fact.
Yep.
And you could do all of that from knocking on someone's door, right? But what I'm talking about, and what we go all the way back to 2013, was looking at these companies that are taking over the world, going like, we're in trouble if we don't step out of this. You know, so yes, you could argue, an estate agent could come on here now or listening to this and argue like, who would seriously sell their house without putting it on Rightmove first? Like, yes, you can make that argument, but it will lead to your obliteration. So there's no point making that argument. Mm-hmm. There's literally no point, because it's going to lead to you not being needed.
Yeah.
If that's true.
We had it with the newspapers.
Continues to be true.
Yeah, but do you think a seller realistically gives a shit about Rightmove? They care about price.
Absolutely.
So you're right. There will be some agents that would never sell anything until it goes onto Rightmove. Well, that's completely irrelevant, because if the client gets the right price and you've got competing bidders before then to test it, then
and you can still go to Rightmove, but you don't want to make it the important thing. That's the bit, like...
But the client isn't going to care.
No, but it can't be the important thing. And if you know that all the other agents are going to go around and talk about Rightmove, if you can think of a compelling reason why Rightmove's not a great place to start, they all just hung themselves.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if your reason was compelling, if your guy went and done his whole pitch and showed all his stuff and said, like, but it's a really bad idea to start on Rightmove, everybody else just killed themselves on the valuation.
Yep.
And it just builds from there. So yeah, I mean, I say it can work straight away, but it is a big mindset shift.
Yeah.
It is a big mindset shift.
Do you think this is what's, and to kind of summarise everything into a conclusion, do you think that's what comes next for estate agents that win? I look at local villages and towns, and I walk past, I'm not a big coffee drinker, but I see certain independent coffee shops that are just booming, and almost people are like actively going against a Costa and a Starbucks in these towns. I was like, no, these are our people. And it's because of the experience. They're paying more to be in there as well, but the setting, the experience, the community, the kind of, we're supporting, you know, Bob and Sue that run it, and it's just a little bit niche in there. It looks cool, and it just, for estate agents where we kind of walk down the high street and everyone kind of looks the same, I just think maybe the future is around that little bit of independency where it's actually, no, they're our agents, they're our people. And whether it doesn't necessarily need to be high street, it's all around digital footprint, you know, that's your shop window these days. But do you think that's the way the industry is saved, is by having that exclusive database that is your superpower, but gives you a reason to be needed by the public?
Yeah, so for me, data is at the very top of the tree. I said at the start, customer experience really strong as well, but data's above it for me. Because two examples, I guess. Customer experience, like if you were desperate for the toilet, or your kid was desperate for the toilet, and you could choose between quickly rushing into a Costa to use their toilets, or maybe an independent coffee shop, most people would probably, I imagine I would anyway, think that the independent's likely to be in a better condition than the Costa one.
Mm-hmm.
Like the Costa one in my town, you have to have a code to get into it, and even then, you've still got a broken toilet seat, and you know, it looks like someone's been murdered in there. Yeah. So that's customer experience, and we all know, right? Everyone, you guys are nodding along. That's what you're going to get in a Costa. It's not hard to fix Costa. Like, do something about it, and people will start coming back to your coffee shop. The independent has fixed it. They're checking the toilet regularly, and they don't need a code on the door because they've figured everything out, and they're on top of it. So that's brilliant. On top of that, though, is data. And when I say data, it sounds so boring, but it is customer experience still. Like Amazon can give a phenomenal customer experience because they have this exclusive data. No one else can do the same thing.
Yeah.
So if an estate agent does an incredibly personal service, they could be very successful like the independent coffee shop. If Costa did something with their data and sorted their customer experience, the independent coffee shops would die, in my opinion. Mm-hmm. Because whatever that magical thing was with the data that made the experience so good for me, you know, if a national, let's take the worst example of estate agents, I don't know, Bairstow Eves. Right?
Masters Thieves.
Yeah. If they could do something phenomenal because of the size of their business with their data, somehow connect all the chains, all the conveyance, and do something that made the experience just amazing, we'd all be in trouble. And so that's why I'm always thinking, in my mind, I sit up thinking about, it's so sad, I sit up thinking about estate agency data and like, what does he need to do in his data so he cannot be beat?
Yep.
And it's quite boring because there's so many like flashy products out there. You almost have to shelve some of the flashy products, especially now with AI and all of that sort of stuff. So easy to sell you something that's just pretty shit, really.
Yeah.
But it looks amazing. I mean, let's look at the whole, what's the trend at the moment? The make an action figure of yourself in a pack, right? It looks, how cool is that? It looks really cool. Yeah. What's the point? No one can tell you. There's no point to it.
Because everyone's doing it.
There's no point to it. But how cool is that?
Yeah.
Like ChatGPT, when it first came out, it was cool that it could do anything. Now everyone's like, it's a bit shit. Yeah. So like, there's so many cool things that people ask me for, and the hardest thing is not just doing them. Because I know I could make sales if I did them. But it's like, we're still going to end up in getting obliterated.
Power of omission.
Yeah,
that's it. This is our end point. That's where we're going. Can I just ask one final question before we wrap? And
yes,
you've talked about IP and data, and I can see now from the conversation we've had the power of that and the potential power of it. What's your opinion in the power of it in terms of value in your business? Because there'll be loads of estate agents listening, and there is a problem in trying to build value in estate agency businesses in this country. It's very, very difficult. Everyone talks about the lettings book. This data set and the way that you're talking about the CRM, that is a game changer in that part, surely, because it builds value in your business. That goodwill that supposedly, gets a tiny little thing on the balance sheet, that is demonstrable now.
Yeah, again, it's a time preference, isn't it? Short term versus long term. Everybody loves the idea of selling their business for millions of pounds, whether they want to do the things required in the short term to get there. They're not sure it's a big enough pool to make someone want to change everything if that was the only thing. But there's no question about, Ian's probably the best person to answer. If you was going to buy an estate agency and they had a life cycle database with a phenomenal amount of data in an area, would they be more valuable to you than if there was an agent in that area that just had, I don't know, some traditional CRM with not much going on in it?
I asked this question in lockdown. You remember Clubhouse?
Yeah.
When everyone was on Clubhouse?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I asked this to a particular estate agency broker, one of the people that kind of obviously put estate agents up for sale. And at the time, she said, absolutely not. It's got nothing to do with your social presence. It's got nothing to do with your data nurture. And I sort of basically said, well, I think you're wrong. But it was kind of left on a bit of a Clubhouse kind of debate. And then I've kind of just, it's stuck in my mind because I know you're wrong. You might not be wrong today, but you are going to be wrong at some point. And what I think is the truth behind it is the buyer of your agency that's not an estate agent, it's probably the most valuable thing to them.
Definitely.
But because the agents that are buying agents don't see it in that way today, it doesn't. But for me, if I was looking at an agency that kind of did the same turnover and one's got this like archived sort of old repeating resi type thing going on that I used to work from, and another one's got a really good social following and a lot of like nurture processes, some lovely content going in it and some automations, well, that's always going to be the more appealing because that's my lazy business. And that's what I want. It's the most efficient one.
Yeah. It's like a pipeline to the pipeline.
Yeah.
It's like there's a pipeline to the pipeline. I can see what's going to come from this.
I can just click things in there. Whereas for this one, I'm like, oh shit, I'm going to need to employ like 10 telesales people to get this one where it needs to go. So I think so, but I think people don't see it. So I actually think there's an opportunity for people on the acquisition aspect of things to take advantage of that because maybe the value isn't what it will be at some point.
Yeah, I've got one client who is currently going around buying up estate agents who have really old shit databases. And he's got this whole formula now of how he takes the data, he sticks it into his lifecycle system, and immediately stuff just starts coming to life that just nothing would have ever happened with it.
Oh, there you go. It's already happening.
Yeah. So
it can be the same thing with the lettings portfolio analogy. A lot of these slick, big companies that got massive property management systems, they're leveraging the property management stuff for maintenance, for all sorts of different revenue streams, and they look at an acquisition and they go, there's a really old traditional, it's really compliant, set up nicely, but they're not making any money on X, Y and Z. They've got no rent guarantee, they've got no maintenance income. We just drop that blueprint into this blueprint and all of a sudden it's 50% more valuable. And I think that's the way it goes. Really insightful. Thank you for joining us on this one. It's really good to get an insight in from a data perspective because I think in agency, what I've noticed when we started and went to the kind of the B&Is and the networking meeting, everyone wants to talk to the agent because we've got the clients, we've got homeowners in abundance in our database, and as a referral partner, we are unbelievable. And I think we totally miss that in agency. And what our databases allow us to do if we use them properly, our CRMs and the automations, is it allows us to show that value, which we do at 10% margin in most cases. And this is a really good way that people will listen and go, fuck, I've got a gold mine here. I need to do something with it, is what I hope. So, yeah, appreciate you joining us, Mark. Thank you.
No problem. Thanks, guys.
Cheers. A massive thank you once again to Mark Burgess from Iceberg Digital for joining us. Big data, big passion, and a good answer to world-class real estate. That I don't think you could argue with, really, when we're talking about customer experience. It's probably a term that hasn't been used as much, it maybe 10 years ago as it is now, but it's a real big statement and something that a lot of agents should be focusing on, and to the minute detail that Mark talked about as well.
Yeah, and I think talking about CRMs and what they actually are meant to be used for in a business and how estate agents use them, I think for me, in a nutshell, that's kind of something that if an estate agent wants to take something away from this episode, is just understanding how do we make that customer relationship management sort of process system, how do we make that relationship with the customer better through our database, through our understanding of what we know about each client. That's really the big takeaway, is looking at ourselves in our own shoebox, in our own little house, our own little business. How do we make our relationship with our clients, our community better? I think, is a great takeaway from the episode.
Yeah, and Mark used a great analogy to emphasize the point that actually for many years you could have done it with a pen and paper, and it's not, looking back now, it's not that far from the truth. But a lot of the stuff he was talking about in terms of the heads up property alerts, and I said about this isn't something that takes time, and maybe there's a bit of a mindset shift for agents to actually look further into the future if they want to. There's no means that people have to do that, but actually if you start to focus on, right, what does estate agency look like in 5 years, what does it look like in 10 years, what does my business look like over the same period, I think suddenly a lot of the things that Mark talked about today will start to make a lot of sense.
Yeah, and agents are different, and we're all different, and we're not all meant to be in one place. Like, not everyone's meant to use one thing. And if you go to the supermarket, I looked the other day, you go to the supermarket, and when you get to the checkout, you've got all the checkouts with people, where it's nice and slow, but you get a chat at the end. Yeah. And then the next section is like the sort of almost do your own scanning, put it in the basket, and off you go. And then the next section, you've already scanned it. You're just uploading your gun and off you go. And it's like the speed of difference, but it's where you feel comfortable is the process that you go down. And every bit of technology and tool and AI, like we've spoken about on the other episode, is all down to where your mindset is. But if you want to be the best possible estate agent you can possibly be, you need to embrace and at least understand these options.
Yeah, I think that's the point. You have to understand it to know it's out there to be able to make an informed decision about whether that's right for you. And you make a really good point, and we've talked about it, numerous times in recent weeks and months, that actually you don't have to please everyone. Mm-hmm. And Mark isn't going to find every client, every estate agent is a client of his, but that's not what he wants either. He wants a very specific type of estate agent who buys into his vision. And as agents, we shouldn't be afraid to be that same way with our clients, that we're working with people who we want to work with. And we're very fortunate, both as business owners, that we're able to make the business that in the same vision that we have. If you're in a employed role, it's slightly different, but there's nothing stopping you finding out about this and making sure that in your head where the industry is going, in my opinion.
Yeah, absolutely. No, great episode. Love the solutions, love the thought process. I think a lot of value for agents out there. And yeah, obviously contact details for Iceberg and Mark will be in the show notes. You can obviously ask us if you want contact information as well. Proud to have them as the sponsors of the show, and really enjoyed this episode.
Yeah, absolutely. As you know, we do this because we love our industry. We want to see it improve and get better. Please share it out on social.